Hi there, Nick Campion here from First Formations, and I'm here today to talk to you about all there is to know about appointing and removing company directors. This video is part of our Whiteboard Thursday video series, where we take a look at all of the aspects of running a limited company here in the UK. So if you want to keep up to date with our insights, advice and inspiration, then hit that subscribe button. But for now, let's get started. Now, a company director can be appointed during incorporation or at any time thereafter. Similarly, directors can resign or be removed at any point after the company is formed, providing such actions are approved by the company and are in line with the provisions of the Companies Act 2006, its Articles of Association, and any shareholder agreements or director service contracts that might be in place. Now, limited companies must always have a minimum of one natural director. That means one human director. Therefore, if a sole natural director resigns or is removed from a company, a replacement director should either be appointed beforehand or at the same time as the original one's departure. So, to begin with, let's take a look at the process of appointing a director. Now, appointing a company director and informing Companies House is actually rather simple. During the formation process, the members, so that's the shareholders and the guarantors, will decide who they want to appoint. In many cases, members appoint themselves as company directors. The company's first directors are entered onto the IN01 form. That's the form that is used to register a limited company. This is then submitted to Companies House for approval. After incorporation, the director appointments need to be carried out using a formal process. For this, the director should sign a letter of consent confirming that they wish to act as a director for the company. And the majority of members must then approve the appointment of that new director by passing an ordinary resolution. In many companies, the appointment of a director can also be approved by the existing board of directors. Once the appointment has been made, you must notify Companies House within 14 days using the AP01 form. Now, the form will need some information about the appointment, and this will include the name and registration of the company that the director is being appointed to, the date of the appointment, the new director's title, full forename and surname, including any former names that they might have, their date of birth, residential address, service address, that's their publicly visible address, the nationality and occupation. If you wish to appoint a corporate director, so that is another company, then the process is pretty much the same. Although the company the corporate director is being appointed to must have at least one other director who is a natural person. The form AP02 is used this time to inform Companies House of the appointment. And this requires information about the name, registration number, again, of the company to which the corporate director is being appointed to, the date of appointment, the registered name and number of the corporate director, its registered office or principal address, the place of registration of the corporate director, and for non-EEA corporate directors, the legal form and governing law. The First Formations Online Company Manager is a great way to file a director appointment at Companies House. Information is sent electronically and the public register is updated in just 48 hours. But don't forget, the company's statutory directors should also be updated as soon as possible. And this record is kept at the registered office or sale address if you have one, and it must be made available for public inspection. Now, most of the information requested on the director appointment form seems fairly straightforward, although there are a couple of questions that often come up in relation to it. The first of which is whether providing a director's middle name is actually required. Companies House requests the surname and full forenames of all appointed directors. Whilst there is no legal requirement to include director middle names, this information may be requested by banks, lenders, and other third parties at some stage during the life of the company. If this information isn't displayed on Companies House, well then this might cause issues. Essentially, if there is no big reason to withhold a middle name, it would probably be best to avoid any potential problems down the road by simply including it at the time of company formation or whenever a new director is appointed. The second question that is often asked is, what does Companies House mean when they ask for the director's occupation? When you appoint a company director, you'll be asked to provide their occupation. Now, being a director itself does not require any formal qualifications. Their role is predominantly managerial and administrative, but many individuals may also have a background in a specific profession or business occupation in addition to their role as being a company director. Often their occupation will actually form a large part of their role as a director. For example, if they are a qualified accountant or lawyer, maybe a sales or marketing executive, an IT specialist, an HR manager, or even a company secretary. You can, therefore, list the director's occupation as a specific profession for which they are part of, if it is applicable. Alternatively, you could just state that they are a director, or you can leave that section of the form blank. Once a director has been appointed and Companies House updated, there might come a time in the future where you have got to make some changes to the details that have been reported. With the exception of the director's date of birth, you can change any details that have been registered at Companies House using the form CH01. If the wrong date of birth has been registered for the director, the only way that these details can be changed is by filing a replacement appointment form, or if the incorrect date was added on incorporation, by using the RP02A and RPCH01 forms. Remember, all directors' details submitted to Companies House at the time of their appointment will be displayed on the public record, with the exception, of course, of the home address and the day element of the director's date of birth. In other words, only the month and the year will be shown. However, if a company director chooses to provide a residential address as their service address, well, then these details will also be shown on the public record. Moving on, let's take a look at removing a director. A company director can be removed for a number of reasons, but the resignation or termination must be in accordance with the terms of the Companies Act 2006, the Articles of Association, the shareholders agreement if applicable, and any service agreement between the director and the company. Remember, you must ensure that your company has at least one natural director appointed at all times. Therefore, you should take this into account if the sole director is leaving or being removed. If a director resigns within the terms of their contract, or you ask a director to voluntarily resign to avoid dismissal proceedings, then you should notify Companies House, online or by post, using the form TM01. And again, this has to be filed at Companies House within 14 days. The public register will be updated to reflect this information, and the company's register of directors must again be updated accordingly. Sometimes, however, a removal of a director does not occur voluntarily. The Model Articles of Association contain a number of provisions that require the immediate removal of a director. And these sorts of circumstances are maybe a provision in the Companies Act 2006 or any other UK legislation prohibiting a director from remaining in office, a bankruptcy order being made against that director, or the director is deemed physically incapable of remaining in office by a registered practitioner. A director can also be removed by the shareholders passing an ordinary resolution. If the reason for termination is not covered by the Articles of Association, the shareholders can remove a director by passing a resolution under Section 168 of the 2006 Act. This procedure is often used when the shareholders are unhappy with the general performance of a company director. Provided that the reason for dismissal doesn't violate any legislation or contractual agreement, the shareholders can pass an ordinary resolution with a simple majority of over 50%. To pass an ordinary resolution, shareholders must give, in this instance, a special notice of at least 28 days before the vote is taken at a general meeting. The director in question must also be notified to allow them to attend the meeting and to make any representations. If a majority vote is achieved, Form TM01 must be filed with Companies House again within 14 days of the termination, and again the Register of Directors must be updated. Another way a director might be removed is by the court or another authority. If a company director fails to maintain their statutory duties and responsibilities, or their conduct is deemed unfit for any other reason, an official complaint can be made to the Insolvency Service by any member of the company or public. A company director can also be disqualified by the court, Companies House, HMRC, the Competition and Markets Authority, the Financial Conduct Authority, or a company insolvency practitioner. Unfit conduct is categorized as either continuing to trade to the detriment of creditors when the company is insolvent, so unable to pay its bills, failing to keep proper accounting records, failing to prepare and file annual accounts and/or confirmation statements, failing to deliver tax returns and/or pay tax liabilities to HMRC, or failing to cooperate with an insolvency practitioner or the official receiver. You may notify Companies House about a new director appointment at the same time as this, if required. Now let's talk briefly about director disqualification. If a director fails to meet the legal requirements of the role, as outlined in the Companies Act 2006 and the Articles of Association, they can be removed from the company and disqualified as a director. Any person who is a disqualified company director is prohibited from holding such a position in any other company for the duration of the ban. The disqualification can be for a period of up to 15 years. They are also prohibited from being a director of a foreign company with UK connections, or being involved in forming, marketing, or running another company, and by being a member or partner of a limited liability partnership. Any violation of the terms of disqualification order can lead to a considerable fine or a prison sentence of up to 2 years. Company directors can immediately be disqualified for a number of reasons, including not being of the minimum age, that's 16, being declared bankrupt or subject to any bankruptcy proceedings, being served with a debt relief order, continuing to trade when a company is insolvent, failing to maintain accurate accounting records, failing again to file the annual accounts and/or the confirmation statements at Companies House, failing to pay corporation tax or any other due taxes, using company finances or assets for personal gain or benefit, or failure to maintain any other statutory duties as per the Companies Act. Applications to investigate a director's conduct can be made to Companies House, the court, the Insolvency Service, or an insolvency practitioner. Following a complaint, a letter will be sent to the director outlining the allegations, the intention to proceed with the disqualification, and the ways in which the director is entitled to respond. Any director who is under investigation should seek legal advice and proceed in one of 3 ways: await notification of a company date for disqualification, defend the allegations if they are believed to be untrue, or to avoid court action by initiating a voluntary disqualification. Details of disqualified directors are added to the Disqualified Directors Register by Companies House. This information is available to all members of the public. In some situations, it is possible to apply to the court to revoke a ban or to lift the restrictions of bankruptcy, but such applications are assessed on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so far we have been looking at the process of appointing and removing a director, as well as the matter of disqualification. But let's now consider a real-world situation that many people can find themselves in, and that is wanting to resign as a director of a company when you are the sole director and which you hold shares in. Now, there are a few things that you can do. You can appoint another director to run the business on your behalf. Alternatively, you can sell the business if it's solvent. Or you can dissolve the company, i.e. to close it and sell the assets. We'll look closely at all three of these. As a shareholder, you will retain the same percentage of ownership and control unless you sell some shares, and you will be entitled to receive surplus profits through dividend payments if you resign as a director. You will also remain fully liable for contributing the value of your shares toward company debt. To appoint a new director, the prospective director would need to sign a letter of consent to act, after which you, in your position as the director or shareholder, depending on what is permitted in your company's articles, should resolve to appoint that person to the board. Afterwards, you would want to file the Form APO1 at Companies House. Once completed, you will then be able to resign. The second option you have is to sell the business. A limited company exists as a distinct legal entity, that is, separate from its owners. This means you can sell it to someone else. Selling a company can be difficult, particularly in the current financial climate. But if your business is viable, profitable, and sustainable, you may stand a good chance of attracting a buyer. This all depends on certain factors like current market conditions, the value of your business, the availability of potential buyers, financial regulations, interest rates on borrowing, and market trends. To increase your chances of selling your company, your business should pose minimal risk to any potential buyer, which will depend on several factors like profitability, both past, present, and in the future, brand image and reputation, customer base and retention rates, the relevance of products and services offered, the potential for growth, and the sustainability of the business. The decision to sell should not be made in haste. You must take time to think critically and explore all of your options. Do your own research and speak to professional advisors. If you decide to sell, discuss your options with a solicitor to ensure all the legal requirements are met. The final option is dissolution. As the owner of a company, you are entitled to close your business and have it struck off from the register. To apply to Companies House to have it closed, you must be able to prove it is solvent, able to pay its bills, that it hasn't traded for at least 3 months, and that all bills and debt have been paid. As part of the company dissolution process, you'll be required to inform all relevant parties associated with your company that you are planning to close. You should contact HMRC to pay any remaining tax liabilities, and you should submit your final annual accounts and company tax return. If there is any capital left over after the payment of all bills and liabilities, this is yours to keep. The closure of the company will be advertised by Companies House in the local gazette. This is to allow objections to be raised by any third parties, such as creditors, who may oppose the closure. All being well, your company should be struck off and closed within 3 months. And that's it. So in today's video, we've looked at the process for appointing directors as well as resigning directors, be it voluntarily or involuntarily. We then briefly looked at director disqualification before looking at the options that sole directors who own shares in the company have should they want to resign. If you have any questions, please do leave a comment. And don't forget, if you want to be the first to receive more videos just like this one, then please hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time. Cheerio.